הקדושה ברוחה ועימה מלאכים צבא שלום ומנוחה בואי המלכה בואי כלה שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום 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 שלום עליכם מלאכי השלום
Shalom Rav Yisrael Haocha Tasim Leolam Shalom Rav Yisrael Haocha Tasim Leolam Ki Ata Hu Melech Adon Chol HaShalom טוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם כי אתה הוא מלך
All right. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you on this Shabbat and have an opportunity to sing together and be together and pray together and be with our shul band and Chag Sameach. We actually say at this point, we make it more complicated. We can't just say the same thing all the time. I don't know why. But technically, the Chag part of the holidays at the beginning and the end. And then in the middle, we have Chol HaMoed, which are kind of intermediate days that are neither holiday nor not holiday. They're somewhere in between. And we say Moadim L'Simcha. Moadim L'Simcha. And then if you really want to be advanced, the response would be Chagim Uzmanim L'Sason. But you don't have to do that. Moadim L'Simcha, everybody. Moadim L'Simcha. We're going to start with a nigun, with a melody to warm up our spirits and our voices, as we often do.
I always feel that it's a really good time to take a nice deep breath before we start our services on a Shul Band Shabbat, really every Shabbat, but especially on Shul Band, because we've been kind of working hard to get all our little rehearsals done. We have a couple of musical surprises tonight that you'll see as we go through our service. So let's all just take a big deep breath. Yadadai with me. Yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Yadadai, dai, 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 yadadai. Yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Yadadai, dai, 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 yadai. Yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Yadadai, dai, 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 yadai. Yadadai, dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Yadadai, dai. Yadadai, dai. Yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Yadadai, everybody together. Very quiet.
I invite you to turn to pages 2 and 3, and if you're comfortable doing so, I ask you to rise as we prepare to bless our Shabbat lights. Let's read together the top 2 paragraphs on page 3, and then we'll join in our blessing. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us, as their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
You may be seated. We turn to pages 20 and 21. We take a moment for Hazarat HaShavua, for a review of the week. We pause on each day, starting with last Shabbat, on thinking about its challenges and its blessings, and work our way through the week, and then we'll come back together and sing Lecha Dodi, Nishama, Nishima, Aruka, deep breath. Review of the week. We'll sing together verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And when we get to verse 9, I'll invite those of you in the sanctuary to rise and face the doors from which we entered to welcome the Shabbat presence into our midst. And for all of us at home or here, as at home you can face your entries to your home, we welcome the Nishama Yetera, the extra soulfulness that travels with us during Shabbat into our hearts.
You know, there's a little tech note. Claudia, if I could have a little monitor of the guitar, Stu's guitar, in mine. Either monitor would be great. There's a little call and response. That means I say something and you repeat it. It's an ancient technique. It should be in our DNA. Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi.
Likrat Kala.
Likrat Kala.
Penei Shabbat.
Penei Shabbat.
Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi.
Likrat Kala.
Likrat Kala.
Penei Shabbat.
Penei Shabbat.
Nekabela.
Nekabela.
Lecha Dodi. Likrat Kala. Penei Shabbat. Nekabela. Lecha Dodi. Likrat Kala. Penei Shabbat. Nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. Yishbianu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad. U'shmo echad. L'shem u'tiferet v'litchila. Lecha Dodi. Likrat Kala. Penei Shabbat. Nekabela. Lecha Dodi. Likrat Kala. Penei Shabbat. Nekabela. Likrat Shabbat. Lechu v'nelcha. Ki mekor. Haveracha. Merosh mikedem. Nisucha. So ma'aseh b'makshavat chila. Lecha Dodi. Likrat Kala. Penei Shabbat. Nekabela. Lecha Dodi. Likrat Kala. Penei Shabbat. Nekabela. Hit oreri. Kivaure. Kumi uri. Shira peri. Kevod Adonai aleich nigla. Lecha Dodi. Likrat Kala. Penei Shabbat. Nekabela. Lecha Dodi. Likrat Kala. Penei Shabbat. Nekabela. Lecha Dodi. Likrat Kala. Penei Shabbat. Nekabela. בעטרת בעולם, גם בשמחה ובצהולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Going to continue on page 26 with Chatzi Kaddish. I'm going to have Charlie lead us.
V'yitkadal, v'yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, B'ma divra hirutei, b'michmahutei, B'chayahon, uv'yonehon, uv'me'iglecho Israel, Bagala, Bagala, Uv'mizman kari, V'yimeru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mivarah, Le'olam u'manei amaya, Yitbara, V'yitbara, V'yitbara, V'yitnabar, V'yitnama, V'yitnaseh, V'yithaler, V'yithaler, V'yithalal, Shemei Dikudisha Barihu, Lemei Mikol Hata, V'shirata, Dush B'tata, V'nehemata, Da'amina, V'yimeru, Amen.
We continue on page 28 with Baruch Hu, our call to prayer.
Oh, am I awake? Am I aware? Are you listening, God, to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Do you really understand? Oh, am I awake? Am I aware? La 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la. Baruch Hu at Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed. Yalla lai lai lai, 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 yalla lai lai lai.
Last three lines in the Hebrew on page 30, El Chai V'Kayam.
El Chai V'Kayam, Tamidim L'Chaleinu L'Olam Va'en, Baruch Ata Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Amariv.
Amen. Page 34 and 35, Shema Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Continue with Vayahavta on page 36. You can be seated, and Leo will lead us.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafchecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu ha'dvarim ha'eleh asher anohi mitzvah hayom alavavecha v'shinatam v'adecha v'divarta bam v'shivteha v'teha uv'leha derech uv'shobeha uv'kumecha uv'shartam le'ot al yadeha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha Uchtavtam al muzazot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru va'astitem et kolotai ve'yiten kelshim lelom lehem ani Adonai Elohehem asher hotzed Tiatem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot hahem Elohim ani Adonai Elohehem.
Adonai Elohechem. Amen.
We are on our way to the sea. We're not quite there yet, right? In our Pesach calendar, the Seder is the time, the beginning of Pesach, the first day that traditionally they were leaving, right? The Seder night, they were marking their doorpost with the blood, and then the next day they were leaving Egypt. And on the seventh day of Pesach, which is Wednesday, Tuesday night and Wednesday, that is traditionally the crossing of the sea. day that they crossed the sea. That's what we read from Torah on the seventh day, is Shirat Hayam, the song of the sea, of which Mi Chamocha is a little piece of. And so we're preparing, and as we prepare for Wednesday, for the full reenactment of crossing the sea with where we could hear the wind blowing and feel the spray of the ocean on our face and all those different things. We'll practice today with some spirit and some ruach as we sing together Mi Chamocha, our song of freedom. Page 40. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
We're going to start that one more time. Okay? I'll la la along with everybody.
1, 2, 3.
4. La 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 la. La 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 Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo meyad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom. We ask that God shelter us with a sukkah of peace, and we use the Hebrew at the top of the page here, and then English that many of you are familiar with.
2, 3, 4. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chayim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right, O Adonai. Amen. Join us. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom, L'Shalom. Ve'hamidenu Shomreinu L'Chaim. Fros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha. Amen. Amen.
We give thanks for Shabbat. Join in Vishamru, page 44.
Clapping or snapping? Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat, lasot et hashabat, lidorotam berit olam. Shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat, lasot et hashabat, lidorotam berit olam. Beini uven b'nei Yisrael, oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. Shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat, asur et hashabat, lidorotam berit olam. Ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat, lasur et hashabat, lidorotam berit olam. Ube'yom hashvi shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash. Shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat, lasur et hashabat, lidorotam berit olam.
Page 46. As we begin our Amidah, I ask those who are comfortable doing so to please rise.
שפתי תפתח, ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips, so my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagidbor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot Ve'imahot, U'mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Lima'an Shemo Ve'ahava, Melech Hoser U'Moshiach U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, ve'ezrat Sarah.
Page 50.
Atah gibor ve'olam Adonai, mechayei hakol atah, Rav lehoshia, morid hatal, mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechaye Akol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofech olim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Mi chamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech me'mid u'mchayeh u'matzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman ata lahachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol.
Page 52. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Baruch Shemo,
Ha'el HaKadosh.
Amen.
Please take a few moments for silent prayer for the text of your own heart or the words of the Siddur of the prayer book through page 62, 63. When you're through, please be seated.
Bottom of page 62. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ve'imru. Amen. Same thing again. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ve'imru. Amen. Yalla la 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 la. Yalla la 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 la. Yalla la 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 la. Yalla la 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 la. Yalla la 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 la. Yalla la 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 la. Yalla la 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 la. Yalla la 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 la. Oh, say shalom bimroma. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ve'imru. Amen. Ve'imru. Amen. Ve'imru. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. So I'm going to reflect tonight on a few pieces of my time in that I had in Israel, my 4.5 weeks or so that I was in Israel. Know that there's lots of things that I will not reflect upon just because it's impossible to do in a short period of time. I also will be on the first Wednesday of May. You'll see it come out. I'm going to do a 2-hour adult Jewish learning thing where I'll talk about some of the different issues. We'll have a little more time to do that. And we're going to be putting out a schedule of a number of different things, not all in-house, but also things that are going on in the community. That will be in April and May around stuff that's going on in Israel and Israel's 75th birthday, which is May 26th, I think, on the Hebrew calendar. I mean, it's May 14th on the English calendar, but it's celebrated by the Hebrew calendar. So have lots of things going on and a number of events in the community so keep your eye out. There should be a lot of interesting opportunities. So I went to Israel. The first part of my time in Israel was with the Central Conference of American Rabbis. So the Reform rabbis, I'm a Reform rabbi. We have a rabbinic body, which is called the Central Conference of American Rabbis. And every 7 years, we have our conference in Israel. So, and I have been to each of those since I've been ordained, to each of those conferences in Israel. And there's always, right, every time we're there, there's some crisis, right, we're dealing with. That becomes an important piece of the conference. This time when we got there, the protest had already been going on for a number of weeks, and so there was a lot of internal tumult going on in Israel. We met with different, as part of our conference, different MKs, members of Knesset, and heard different perspectives. We met with many of our colleagues in the Israeli Reform movement because they're a relatively small movement in Israel, and so it's exciting for them when 250 Reform rabbis from the United States come to Israel. There are 54 Reform congregations in Israel, so 250 rabbis coming is a big deal for them, Reform rabbis, and it's still just a drop when you think of the thousands and thousands of synagogues around Israel, but it's twice as many as there were 10 years ago. right? So the reform movement has been growing in Israel, and putting the vision of a liberal Judaism is gaining. In places like Tel Aviv, where Beit Daniel, the biggest Reform synagogue, has 3 locations, Jaffa, the center of the city, and in North Tel Aviv. Each of those locations has multiple B'nai Mitzvah each Shabbat, right? These aren't necessarily people who are, people don't necessarily join synagogues like we have here, with a yearly fee, but these are people who are now thinking that, oh, I'm a secular Israeli, but the place I want to have my son become bar mitzvah, or my daughter read from the Torah, which she can't do someplace else, right, is in a Reform synagogue and not in the Orthodox synagogue that I would have gone to prior, before I had been to a classmate's bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah in one of the Reform synagogues. And kindergartens and preschools are really the places that the Reform and conservative movements in Israel have the energy. It's people who are not necessarily deeply committed to Reform Judaism, but they want to do Jewish ritual, but they don't want to do it in an Orthodox way, and they're looking for other ways to do that. These proposed judicial reforms, of course, are a liberal Jewish issue as well as an issue for other groups, right? For women and Palestinians and the secular, and for all sorts of other issues, because the court, many of the gains that we've made in Israel have been because of court decisions. So for instance, just a few years ago, the court ruled that Reform and conservative conversions performed in Israel had to be recognized by the state, right? That's one of the things, and there have been hundreds of them since then, and that's one of the things that those who would like to have more control over the court would like to be able to overturn, right? To be able to have more religious control in those ways. So the Reform movement has an official position in Israel. The Israeli Reform movement in Israel took a official position. It was actually the only religious movement to do that against the judicial reforms. And in the protest march under a big banner that says, the Israeli Reform movement, and it says, because of our Judaism, we defend democracy, right? So also trying to put out a vision that this shouldn't be thought of as Judaism or democracy, but a vision of Judaism that is deeply intertwined with a democratic society. During these protests, and the days leading up to that, obviously there was much tumult and continues to be much tumult in Israel, but I think there's also heroes along the way, not only the heroes on the street who come out week after week, and people have continued to come out even with the pause in the legislation, not quite in the same numbers, but they've still been coming out. 1 in 5 Israelis has been on the street. I mean, just think about the numbers. That's a lot of people. Not all at the same time, 1 in 5 Israelis, but polls show that 1 out of every 5 Israelis has been to one of the protests. And even on a given night, the Saturday night before the pause, you had 500,000 people protesting across the country, right? That's like 16 million Americans out on the street proportionally. You're talking about large numbers of people. And there have been people like the Attorney General, Gali Barav Miara, who was a virtual unknown when she was picked as Attorney General over a year ago, but she has stood up to pressure from the government. She's represented the law. They've threatened to fire her. The police have had to protect her, but she's done her job day after day and has made a difference in protecting the rule of law. You saw Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, who locked horns with Bezalel Smotrich almost from the first day of the government, who is right-wing religious leader who's part of the government. And he warned that the madness had to stop, that there could be reform or there might not be, but it had to be the result of dialogue, not a coalition rushing to push through their agenda. And so Netanyahu, in a social media message, fired him, but inadvertently at that moment created a new national hero. That's in the middle of the night. He was fired at like 9 or 10 p.m. at night, and by 2 in the morning, there were tens of thousands of Israelis in the streets. And now, interestingly enough, it's not really clear. He never got an official letter to fire him. He goes to the office every day. He's still the one who people are reporting to, but Netanyahu also hasn't step back and say, oh, actually, he's the defense minister. They haven't talked to each other, but they've appeared together at a couple of events for the army. So we have maybe a defense minister who's still on the job. He's still on the job, but whether he's the defense minister or not is not totally clear. We saw Asaf Zamir, Israel's consul general in New York City, who had already been reprimanded once for critiquing the government, resign in protest after Gallant was fired. And he was in New York to serve his country, but he felt that he served his country better by refusing to serve the government of that time. And you saw hundreds of pilots and special forces soldiers and officers and non-officers alike say that the IDF is the people's army. And the people's army, they said, carries out orders, but only if they're the orders of a democratic state. And with the country looking like it might not stay democratic, they said, hey, we're not training, we're not flying, we're not reporting. This is a challenging, morally complicated step to take. I'm not endorsing it or not endorsing it, even among those who are for the protest, right? This piece gets, but, and I think reasonable people can critique it. But these were people who were doing this not because they didn't like their country, but because they loved their country, right? Certainly not out of cowardice. It was their courage to step forward and to say, we love our country, and because of that, we need to see things move in a different way. And we're on a pause, but everything was pushed so that all the readings, all the things that had to happen have done. All that has to happen is legislation comes before the full Knesset and has a vote, right? So it could happen anytime the government decides to. After the holidays, they'll probably wait till after Yom HaAtzmaut and Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaShoah, all of our holidays coming up, Israel's Independence Day and Memorial Day and Holocaust Memorial Day and Pesach. Those will all be over, and then we'll see where we are. So that's the part about the judicial reform. And by the way, judicial reform is only one small piece of a whole package of legislation that is being pushed through, including legislation. And anytime there's legislation that's being passed that's about a particular person, it always makes me nervous, right? So, there's legislation they're calling Dairy 2, which is because Dairy, who is a part of an ultra-Orthodox party, was banned from serving as a minister because he had a plea deal in which he said, for a previous conviction, that he said, I won't serve in public life anymore. And then they appointed him to be a minister, and the court said, you can't do that. And so now they're passing a law to say, yes, we can, right? So it's like they're going around. And we also have a law that was just passed that there was the Attorney General had said that the Prime Minister could not be engaged in anything that might be a conflict of interest because, of course, he's under indictment as well. Almost the heads of all the parties in the government either have been convicted of a crime or are under indictment for a crime at the moment, which is problematic. But so they've passed basically saying that he can speak out, that the conflict of interest is null and void. That past that. Whether it will, the court could rule on it again, then you have a little constitutional crisis in a country without a constitution, right? They'd still call it a constitutional crisis because it's about constitutional issues, but there's not a constitution, which is one of the challenges. I also had, following the conference, I had the opportunity to travel in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem and to hear stories of Palestinians, and there are really, multiple different groups of Palestinians. There's not really the Palestinians. There's Palestinians who live in Israel and are Israeli citizens, right? Sometimes called Israeli Arabs also, right, in that way. There are Palestinians in East Jerusalem, most of whom have residency in Israel but aren't citizens, so they have freedom of movement and stuff like that, but they're not voting in national elections. There are Palestinians in the West Bank who live under the control of the military, Israeli military, and can't, by and large, don't have freedom of travel and movement and things like that. And then there are Palestinians in Gaza who live under Hamas and have it the worst, right? So we really have, and each of these folks have different amounts of privilege and opportunity, right, depending on which legal system, right, they live under. Issues in certain areas, in Area C in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem with house demolitions, usually because houses are built illegally, but they're built illegally because it's impossible to get a building permit in those parts. People with difficulty traveling, they have to travel through Amman. If they live in the West Bank, usually they have to give themselves an extra day, cross a border, go to another place, do those kinds of things. Issues of traveling within the West Bank, all of those kinds of things. I believe that 55 years of military rule in the territories has been a disaster, not just for Palestinians, but for Israel. I think it's eaten away at Israel's liberal democracy. I don't have an easy solution for it, though. So it's easy to say the occupation's a disaster, much harder to find a way out of it. So I want to be very clear about that. It's, if there was an easy solution, it would have ended, right, a long time ago. But I do believe that some of the events that are taking place today are, in a sense, part of living with the occupation for 55 years has eaten away at some of those liberal democratic values. It's corrosive. And I think some of what we see inside of Israel today is also a reflection of those things. Yeshayahu Leibowitz, who actually starting in the 1960s, late 1960s after the Six-Day War, but in the 1980s, and he was an Orthodox scholar, philosopher, who warned at the time that continuing to rule over another people will eventually eat away, right, at our own moral character. He was a winner of the Israel Prize, like Israel's Nobel Prize. Not for that, by the way. Those were very controversial remarks that he made, but in other areas of his scholarship, he was much less controversial and had great acclaim. Some of you may have studied Torah read books by Nechama Leibowitz. That was his sister, so she was a great Torah scholar. And wrote lots of Torah commentaries. I've got a multi-volume on my shelf. And so there's all those things going on, and those things for me are difficult and heartbreaking and sometimes depressing and sometimes uplifting. I must tell you, going to a protest with 160, 150,000 people also felt powerful and uplifting, and people standing up and doing what they need. And the sense that, and the fact that these protests with 150,000 people were like totally peaceful, like almost unimaginable, like the number of people there and the fact that there was no issue of violence at the protest. And there's all that, and then there's just the fact that I love being in Israel, right? Like It's messy and complicated and heartbreaking and uplifting and etc. And I love being in Israel. There are great restaurants and wonderful people that I spent time with. I enjoyed Israel's natural beauty. I spent a few days at Maktesh Ramon at Israel's Grand Canyon out in the desert and hiked around for a few days. I spent some time in Haifa, which is a city I really love, and just at an Airbnb and got to just wander and spend time and eat street food and do all sorts of stuff like that. And Karen and I met in Israel in 1990 and spent a year, 10 months that year, and 10 months a few years later living in Israel. So Israel feels very much like a place that I feel at home. And again, while it can break my heart, it also uplifts me and fills my heart, right, in all sorts of ways. And Karen came and joined me for the last 12 days of our trip. We, my daughter, as well as Lauren's daughter and Tiana's sister, who they're here, are studying at Heller High in Israel, which is the Reform Movement's high school, which is on Kibbutz Suba outside Jerusalem. So most of the end of our trip was a parent trip, so we got to be there with them as well, and a bunch of other parents, and traveled around and sat in on classes and could be, jealous about, for me, I don't know that other people were, but like the amount of Jewish history they get to study, right? Like 2.5 hours a day of Jewish history. Like, you don't get those opportunities that often in your life, and then you get to go to those places, right? They might say, 2.5 hours a day of Jewish history. But I say, like, 2.5 hours a day of Jewish history. That's amazing. And then they get to go to the places that they're studying, right, on field trips and stuff. And they just got back from a week in Poland because they had been studying the Holocaust and the years of settlement and all of those kinds of things in that period. And then they went for a week to Poland and visited all those places that they had been learning about. When Karen and I were in Israel, we were with the University of California, and there was like a house mother. Her name was Hannah Arnon. She ran the UC program for 27 years in Israel, and we see her occasionally when we're there. And this was a very Israel moment. We were actually going out to dinner with Lauren and Lev and Tiana and our kid, and we were walking down the street, and we had been texting Hannah to try to get in touch, see if we could see her. She's 84 now, and see if we could see her. And we ran into her on the street. Hannah, Karen's like, Hannah, hi, wow, and we were able to spend time with, we met her one day for breakfast and were able to do that. But that happens, right? You run into people all over the place. People often that, like, I run into people that I never see in the United States who live here, but I run into them there. So that's part of being in Israel as well. And spending time with my daughter and watching the amazing community that they've created there with each other and the learning that they're doing, that was all exciting and wonderful as well. So even, Israel is filled, and right now is a very challenging time. And what the future of Israel looks like is uncertain, right? All these things that infuriate me, things that uplift me. And at the same time, I can't wait to go back, right? I hope to go back soon. This was actually a long period for me to be gone because I went in 2019 and then there was this thing in between. And I didn't go because of the pandemic. So for me, that's a long time not to go. And so I look forward to returning soon. As I mentioned, please watch your emails for a number of opportunities for learning and connection as we celebrate Israel's 75th birthday, and as we learn about different issues of the current things that are going on. There'll be opportunities to learn stuff here at TBI in the community. There's a Yom HaAtzmaut event with Yossi Klein Halevi at UCLA, and we're going to try to organize some transportation and carpools from here. The Israel Consul General is also coming to Temple Beth David in Temple City as with our federation. So there's different perspectives, different things, lots of things that are happening, and we hope you'll take part and be engaged as we celebrate and reflect on Israel at 75. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to turn now to page 253 as we hold in our hearts and in our minds all of those in need of healing, of body, of mind, of spirit. Yishaberach.
O Holy One, who blessed our mothers, blessed our fathers from ancient days, bless and heal those in our hearts, and hear our prayer as we say their names. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem, Lehachzikam Urapeotam, Veishlach Lahem Yifruat Shlema, Rifuat HaNefesh, Rifuat HaGuf, B'toch Sha'ar Cholei Yisrael. Oh, bless and heal those in our hearts, and hear our prayer as we say their names.
If you're at home, feel free to share names in the chat. We hold in our hearts Rebecca Gilman, Hannah Fields Austin, Sue Tobak, Rosalind Lefkowitz, Helen Weinfeld, Pam Poliakoff, Kathy Blumenfeld, Caitlin Antrim, Jennifer Rudin, Brand Holland, Serena Postal, Bobby Kay, Robert Strober, Marilyn Lubarsky, Ellery Einstein, Joan Morse, Nomi Kravitz, Craig Sachs, Myra White, Lori Snyder, Cherry DeRazaday, Mike Klein, Barbara Fass, Joel Beasy, Burton Gershman, Lawson Spicer, Gloria Foster, Rita Warshaw, Ira Quatcher, Robert Gerard, Stephen Arts, Adele Harris, Brenda Found Gerard, Ron Freelander, Harvey Sherman, Jan Marcus, Fred Fable, Marla Fragosa, Candy Stevens, Martin Cole, Al Shapiro, Jeff Nelson, Ron Resnick, James Stead, Gina Eli, Robert Waldman, Barry Gustafaro, Judith Gratz Delane, Bonnie Stade, Cynthia Tolentino, Eva Laxon, Mar Gassner, Alda Mendoza, Mitch Samuelson, Sharna Blitz, Eli Wakefield, Rob Shear, and
HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem. Oh, bless and heal those in our hearts, hear our prayers as we say their names.
Well, it is our first Shabbat in the month of April. So if we have April birthdays, I invite April birthdays to stand up and move toward the center aisle. And I could use a few people who aren't April birthdays.
Join Neil there in the back.
Are you? You're not an April birthday. You're an April birthday. Yeah, we're gonna march you up. You're already up here. Right. Okay, so do we have a couple of not April birthdays you can help hold our canopy? Come on, yeah. I see a Leo coming. A Leo. That's not his sign. That's his. All right. And one more holder. Now we're gonna call a few people up here. Here we go. They all came up before we sang, so you were just a little.
Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach.
Yom Huledet Sameach, happy birthday, and we wish you not only a good birthday, whether it's already happened or it's gonna happen, but more importantly, a good year. A year of blessing, a year of connection to community, a year of growth of spirit, a year of good things for all of you. And so we offer the blessing of our tradition.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless you and may God keep you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka.
May God's light shine into you and through you to others. May God always be compassionate unto you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
May God and all that is good be present for you in your life. May you find shalom, wholeness, and peace in your heart, in your family, in your community, and may you join with others to bring our world closer to wholeness and peace. And we say together,
Amen.
we have our birthday pencil/chocolates here with our joint venture with Mark Feynman, who does our chocolate. So, and then we'll sing you out. In just
Sing
a
out,
minute.
join me. 1, 2, 1. Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach,
Thank you.
Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach, Yom Huledet Sameach. Oh yeah.
A few announcements.
I made it. Thank you, everyone, for being patient. I'm on the mend after breaking my ankle in 2 spots. So, very happy to be here, though. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, thank you for being here, both in the sanctuary and online. Toda Rabbah to Rabbi Kupetz for leading our service in such an inspiring way, and to Cantor Bush for providing richness in voice and music. And also, I'd like to thank the band tonight, mainly Ed Reedsley, Chris Grasky, Jeff Klein, and Stu Ziff. Thank you, Toda Rabbah. Thank you to our TBI One Committee for donation of the delicious desserts tonight and our dedicated challah team. Thank you to tonight's greeters, Kylie Sykes, Ruth Charloff, Judy Rose, and Phyllis Blackie. And also to our driveway greeters, the TBI security team. After services, we gather in the social hall for kiddush, motzi, refreshments, and conversation. Please take this opportunity to get to know someone new, which will help us continue to build our warm, personal Jewish community. We have a busy and engaged community. Find what interests you in our weekly update emailed every Thursday, our monthly Kahila, and our website and Facebook pages. I'd like to highlight some events coming up. Wednesday, April 12th, the 7th day of Passover, TBI offices will be closed. Later that evening, 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. is a Zoom discussion on proposed bylaw changes. Also on Thursday, April 13th, there'll be another discussion from 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. On Zoom about the proposed bylaw changes. Next, on Sunday, April 16th, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., there will be an in-person meeting about the bylaw changes. And I did not forget my most favorite event that occurs every single year around this time. If you've never attended, please plan on attending. It's for children and those who are children at heart like myself, because I just love this event. Saturday, April 15th, 7 p.m. I wish we could do a drum roll, but it's Magic Night. Thank you. Magic Night, my favorite event. Check the weekly update for more information on it, and I hope to see all of you there and all the kids there and all the kids at heart. Thank you, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Also want to just mention, unless Rabbi's going to do it for me. Go ahead.
I don't know, you're going to hire the seventh day?
Yeah, well, you go the seventh day and I'll go for...
Okay, so Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., we have our seventh day Pesach service here in the sanctuary. It includes Yizkor memorial prayers as well. So traditionally we remember people on their yort site, the anniversary of their deaths, and also at a number of times during the year when Yizkor is recited, and the seventh day of Passover for us is one of those days as well. In conservative organizations, it might be the eighth day of Passover, but here it's the seventh day. So we have a service on the seventh day at 10 a.m. for those who are able to join us in the sanctuary. That's wonderful, and we will also be online.
And I was going to mention that on April 16th, Sunday afternoon, we are commemorating Yom HaShoah, which is, I believe, Tuesday on the secular calendar, a week from this coming Tuesday. On the 16th at 4 p.m., we have the privilege of having Dr. Wendy Lower from the Claremont Colleges, who's going to be our featured speaker. So I want to invite that. And I also just want to mention, I think some of you have met my friend Stu in previous years when he was available to join us, but we met at summer camp when we were 13 years old, and we've been best friends ever since, and started playing in bands together. I think when I was about 15, I dragged him over to my very ordinary band, and he brought new life and new spirit to that even way back then. So I'm really happy he was able to join us this evening. And of course, always really happy to have our Shul Band Corps, a number of our regulars, Reed and J. Mike, for example, were not available tonight. We want to give a shout out to our good friend Al, who is still recovering, and look forward to him rejoining us soon. And thank you for welcoming us into the temple.
We are going to turn to page 278 because I'm ready, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to fulfill the mitzvah of counting the Omer. And we do that now, between now and Shavuot. So we'll start with the blessing there in the middle of the page.
Hineni muchan umezuman lekayem mitzvah aseh shel sfirat laomer Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer.
Our praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer.
Hayom shnei yamim la'omer.
Today is the second day in the counting of the Omer. We count to 49, so we've got a ways to go. We now turn to page 282 in the middle of the page for Aleinu L'Shabeach. I invite everybody who's comfortable doing so to please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצו, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
287.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
$294. Take a moment to remember those who have been important in our lives and have left this earth, those who have died in recent days or at this time in years past. Remember the recent death of Gloria Wagman. Was a Temple member and the mother of Larry Wagman as well. We remember the Yortzites, the anniversaries of the deaths of Edward Katzman, Alice Blumenfeld, Perry Dubin, Sarah Ferguson, Jan Aline Goldhammer, Antonio Granja, Phyllis Kessler, Mary Louise Sage, Charlotte Singer, Esther Vespris, Harold Savage, Anna Enck, Sarah G. Brown, Lester Cook, Ida Thavun Feynman, Martin Greenstein, Catherine Prommel, Barbara Toole, Jack Warshaw, Howard Herman, Rachela R. Horwitz, Nina Morecki, Selwyn Berg, Morton S. Kaloff, Sonia Liget, Helen Fields McGaha, Stephen Rodman, Ross, Howard Schumann, and William Van Grove. If you have somebody that you're remembering on this Shabbat and would like to add a name to those I've mentioned, please do so as I come by your row or put it in the chat. If you're in a time of mourning or observing a Yortzeit on the Shabbat, I invite you to please rise. And I invite the rest of the congregation, if it's your custom, to rise in embrace and support of those who mourn. Page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Bialma divrach hirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayachon v'yomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach leolam olomei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei dukudusha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, da'amiram bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be for a blessing.
So we'll conclude on the last paragraph on page 321 with Ve'ado.
Be'ado av kiduchi, be'edishan ve'a'ira, ve'imruchi keviati, Adonai li ve'lo ira, ve'imruchi keviati, Adonai li ve'lo ira. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand.
My soul I give to you. My soul
May
I give to you, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand.
My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your
Please join us in the social hall for Kiddush, Motzi, refreshments. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you to Claudia Gonzalez for handling all of our technological needs, and we look forward to seeing you Seventh Day Pesach service next Wednesday morning.